Okay, this is the Nailing It podcast. My name is Jay Hind, and as you know, every so often we like to get people who've inspired us on the Guide Liverpool over the years, people doing successful things, doing great things within business, no matter what that sector is really. Here in Liverpool, we've got so many people that have just smashed it and are smashing it in terms of business. Hospitality is a biggie. Liverpool was just put in a really kind of huge list with Time Out as one of the top cities for food in the world, which is incredible. And one of the brands, one of the restaurants that you always see right up there is Marais. We all know it, we all love it, we all know that disco cauliflower, and with someone who was kind of responsible for bringing us that very dish, that brand, that restaurant that we all know and love in Liverpool and now beyond, and with Thomas White from QVO Hospitality. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
That is true, mate. There's two of you, wasn't there, who brought us Marais, brought us disco cauliflower. We're going to talk more about that and that dish and tons more stuff. Obviously, we want to get some advice from you as well. Tell us your story. How did you get to the point of Marais?
Good question. So my background, I come from, there's a degree of serendipity, I think like with a lot of people. So I came from a sort of visual arts background. I was studying illustration and art at school, at college, university even. So post-grad, I, like a lot of people, I fell into hospitality, to be honest. And I was working in bars in London. But I was actually born in Liverpool. So I grew up down south, hence the accent. So after uni, I was working in bars and started to really enjoy it. You know, started to get started like managing places, and then I was working between London and Liverpool, and then so there was three of us that founded Marais originally. As myself, Dom and James. Dom's since left the business to set up his own thing a couple of years ago. So now it's just James and myself. But actually, the original concept for Marais is like slightly different, and not many people know this, so it's quite cool to tell this story. But like we'd been to Paris together, the three of us, back in like 2012, and we visited the Marais district, which is where the name comes from. And for those that don't know, Le Marais is it's basically like a neighborhood within Paris called an arrondissement, and it's a cultural melting pot. It's like a super vibrant knot of streets, like just behind the Bastille. And there's a particular street on that road called Rue de Rosier, which translates as street of rose bushes, which is where you might see as like a rose in our logo, and that's where that comes from. And that street is lined with amazing falafel joints, like the best falafel you will ever have. And then in the area, there's also an abundance of amazing restaurants and cocktail bars. So we've been there together. And then the original plan that we hit upon was like, right, Jay's from a food background. His mum used to run cafes and he used to work in food. And he was really passionate about falafel. And he was like, I want to open a falafel joint in Liverpool, and I want to serve the best falafel in Liverpool. And me and Dom are from bartending background, so we worked in bars together, and we were desperate to open a cocktail bar. It was like our dream. So like, right, well, let's do this together, and let's open a gaff in Liverpool that serves the best falafel in the city with like the best drinks as well. And that was originally the concept that we sort of thrashed out over, you know, once a week we'd get together, have a couple of pints. And the idea was that it was going to be like a falafel joint upstairs, and then there'd be like a sort of subterranean speakeasy cocktail bar.
I like the sound of this.
Yeah, I know, it's really cool. And actually, if you go into Bold Street now, like we've got a bar in the basement, which we renovated the basement like years later, which is sort of like a little hats off to that original concept. So we planned to do that, and it was sort of inspired by a couple of places in New York and Paris. New York, you've got PDT, and then in Paris, there's a place called Candelaria. But then due to like planning constraints, we realized we'd have to open a restaurant, because like very boring legal stuff around like Roadwalks area where you can't be like vertical drinking. Anyway, no one needs to know about that. Ultimately, we're like, right, so we need to open a restaurant, and we'll put the food and the drinks together. And so that was the original concept, and we had a really simple food menu that centered around falafel and a few really simple kind of humble North African, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern dishes, like really, really basic, and a really bold, simple cocktail menu. And we've managed to find that site on Bold Street. We looked at a few, and in hindsight, it's like, wow, like if it wasn't that site, it would have been so different. And we found that site, and just opened it on a shoestring. And yeah,
and that was 2014. That was 10 years ago. This week, the week we're recording this,
actually this week,
which is amazing.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like you've been here forever. Marais feels so part of Liverpool's food culture, but 10 years as well. You must go, oh my God! It's like, how did this happen?
Yeah, thank you. That's really. It's always a bit. Do you know what? I get like still get mad imposter syndrome when people say that. It's weird. It's like. But yeah, it's very cool. And yeah, 10 years this literally to the week. So we celebrated at Bold Street. The weekend just gone. We threw a bit of a party during the day, gave away a load of falafel, had some live music outside, just had a bit of a party, got loads of balloons. I actually got a disco ball made, like a cauliflower disco ball. At this point was where I was losing the plot a bit, and I was like a couple of weeks before, and I was trying to think of like what kind of like out of the box marketing stuff. And yeah, I think that was the point. I think I was a bit sleep deprived, and I was like, this is definitely a good idea. It is cool, and if you go into Bold Street, it's hanging above the bar. It's the most extra thing I've ever done in my.
You need to do a competition, give this away or something.
Yeah,
because that'd go crazy.
I'm a bit worried though that it looks like a piñata, and that someone on a Saturday night is just gonna like, you know, like get up. Yeah. But yeah, so we threw a party, and then on Monday we closed all the restaurants and we took all of our team, because obviously we've got three Marais sites now, Bold Street, Docks and Manchester. So we closed all the sites and we took everyone to Sefton Park, played a pretty boisterous, unruly game of rounders.
Okay.
And went to Gin Garden, has had a bit of a party. But as part of this 10-year, as part of the 10-year celebration as well, what we did, we took some of the team to back to Paris.
Wow.
So we went a few weeks ago, and if you follow us on Instagram, you may have seen some of the content of that going out. We actually went with a photographer called Sean, who shot a video as well, and we spent we did a 12-hour whirlwind trip back to all of the spots that we went to in Paris 10 years ago.
Love this.
So that video is going to be dropping soon, and it's amazing. It was a complete whirlwind, but we just sort of like retraced our steps basically, because it was a really nice kind of full circle thing to do, and just to go back to the place that sort of inspired it all. But yeah, 10 years, it's mad.
How did you, so you got the keys to the Bold Street venue.
Yeah.
How did you create the Marais brand and identity? Because it's got such a strong identity. Is that just because I've known it for 10 years and enjoyed it, or did you work hard to create the kind of logo, the feel, the look, obviously the menu?
I think there's different. A brand is like, it's when you say the word, and this is something that I've figured out over the last like 10 years, right? It's a brand is, the word brand has lots of different meanings, doesn't it? And like a brand is not just a logo or like a set of fonts or a color palette. A brand, like what brand means to me is like how somewhere makes you feel, and it's like people respond to brands emotionally. So, and actually our logos changed a bit over the years, but I think that it's what a brand is, what the Marais brand is like the sum of all of the different touch points that someone has with our business. So it's like how they feel when they come in, how they're greeted, the text, the music, the atmosphere, but it's ultimately like an emotional response to a brand. That's why we're drawn to like certain places, aren't we? Because that's why we go certain places, because it makes us feel something. So just on the visual side of it, like I suppose that was part of, because I was studying design and illustration, that's always been something that came quite naturally to me. So that was I just got stuck in there, and that was kind of that was the easy part, to be honest. That was the easy bit, coming up with a nice logo and designing this. I mean, in terms of the interior, like we had like no budget at all, so it was fortunate actually at the time. The whole kind of like kind of stripped back, elegantly disheveled interior look was quite like popular. Do you know what I mean? Like bare brick walls, tables made out of scaffold board.
Yeah.
They were economic decisions really more than anything else, but it just happened to be that that was kind of like popular. We've since upgraded some of those finishes, but so we opened it on a shoestring, and a lot of decisions were just made because it was like a simple, you know, we just did like a really basic logo. I think originally we didn't even have a sign. I didn't even want to put a sign up. I think because I was very young, and I was probably, and very pretentious, and still am. But I was like, I don't want to put a sign up. Every drink has to have, you know, these weird spirits in it. So a lot of what you're talking about is just organic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Happens.
And it just happened. Like,
before, weren't we? Off mic, we were saying about how I think in any business you do make it up as you go along some days, and you learn as you go, don't you? You make mistakes. I'm still doing it now, 10 years in. You're probably the same.
We didn't even know how to Z the card machine at the end of the first service. We had to go and ask our friends in Salt Dust Slims, like, yeah, there's a fallacy. There's this common misconception. Even like you said, even now, you look at your peers in the industry and you think that everyone's got it figured out, but they haven't.
No, no one has. No one has. Yeah. What was it like when you kind of realised this is going to work? This is going to be a success. The feedback we're getting is good. We've got a bit of cash in the till. When was that moment, and how did that feel? So,
I would say that a big catalyst came when Jay Rayner came in. So that was, we've been operating for a couple of years. The three of us have been working within the business. Like, when I say within, I mean like on the tools, you know, 80 hours a week, running that single site. And I don't think any of us really looked past that one restaurant. We were very young, very like, loads of energy, loads of passion. And I think we didn't really look past just opening a single site. And then serendipity, Jay Rayner sent a tweet out asking if there was any restaurants that someone could recommend in Liverpool that were open like past like 9 o'clock or something, because he was doing an event, and someone replied and said, because we were open late. That was one of the things that we decided we were going to do from the get-go, is Bold Street would be open till like 11 p.m. And someone recommended it that he come to us. So we booked in under his own name. He rang up and booked in. He wasn't reviewing, he was just coming in to eat. And then obviously we like sorry, I know this all then. We shit yourself. We shit, yeah. That is a grand understatement. Like, we actually like, we knew he wasn't going to review, because normally the way it works is like, you're like, people go to and say like, please come review us, because you know what the impact can be of a good review, and you know. So we came in, and then we were contacted like a week later or something by the Guardian saying, Jay's writing a piece, can we send a photographer? We were like, shit, like, but it must be okay, because like writing a bad unsolicited review would kind of be a dick move. Like, so we kind of, okay, hopefully it's good. He's had a good time, and like, and then I think it was like Easter weekend of 2016. We had this great review. I mean, it wasn't without its constructive criticisms, don't get me wrong. He referred to the language that was used on the website, which I'd written, and now like I look, it makes me cringe so much, because I think I'd used the word like we curated our menu or something, and it just makes my skin itch thinking about it. But I was 24, so whatever. And then from that point, we noticed a complete, like, well, literally you can look at the figures, like, you know, we were like, people came, like, because people follow what he says, you know, he still has such sway in the industry. We noticed a big change in demographic. There were like lots of, you know, for lack of a better term, Guardian readers coming in, asking us if our Chardonnay was oaked and stuff like that. And I think at that point, to answer your question a bit more directly, that was like, okay, so we're doing something here that people like, and this has probably got legs. And at that point that's then where a really challenging part of business comes, is where it's all very well to sort of run a business and work within it, you know, like a lifestyle. But then when you want to actually grow it and open more venues, then you have to kind of step out and that's a whole other thing that no one teaches you how to do.
That's the scary part, isn't it? And it's kind of that they're the days when the panic does really set in, and but you've got to do it as well, so you've got no choice, because you're thinking we can't just stay stagnant. We've reached the peak. You've got to move on. How did you grow at this point? I know there was other venues. What was it that got you over that side?
Yeah, well, we decided we were going to open another site. So we opened a site in Allerton, which is now closed. That was another big challenge. And that transition from 1 to 2 sites, I think if you ask any hospitality entrepreneur, they'll tell you that's a big learning curve, because the complexity just like is exponential, and this is a really big, and not just for hospitality, but for any entrepreneur going from working within your business to on it. That jump is really hard, and oftentimes some people never actually manage to make that, because it's so you have to decouple yourself from stuff that you do that's completely like reactive or into even like a really basic example of that is like when we're like, right, so we need to work on this, so we need to not be working 80 to 100 hours a week in it. We need to work on it to be able to grow it. So then you bring management in to start running the site, and then obviously it doesn't get run the way that you were running it, because you haven't put systems in place. So you come in and like get annoyed about why a light bulb is off, and then not wonder like, oh, maybe it's because you haven't created a system for that, or maybe you need to create a checklist because it's just something that you do.
You just do naturally.
That's a really like granular example, but that spread that across every single aspect of your business. So that was a big learning curve. I shudder to think of the opening of Allerton. I was still tiling the pass when people were coming in. Literally, it was beautifully chaotic.
You covered it well. I was in the Allerton site many times, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. That's when I think I really fell in love with Marais, if I'm honest.
Sure, okay.
So I was surprised when it did close. So
Yeah.
I was quite shocked, and a bit gutted because it's round the corner from me.
Yeah.
What were the reasons, Tom? What happened?
The reason, and this is something that we opened Allerton, then we opened the Docks, and then and what we found was that a suburb, it just wasn't enough footfall for us, to sustain. And what we found is that we were growing, and we were opening Manchester and the Docks, which were really busy sites. And the crux of it was we were putting disproportionate amount of energy to try and drive footfall in Allerton, or even trying to staff it, because we're trying to put people to run that site at the expense of the sites that are actually going to do well. And it was just like a no-brainer,
but that's quite you're really honest in what you're saying there. It's a clever decision, isn't it? Because you could have carried on, and sometimes your ego gets in the way of you thinking, no, we're going to do this, but you've made a decision to save those other sites that are performing. Yeah,
100%. And it was, I have no regret. Like, I'm glad we opened Allerton, because the lessons that we learned through opening that restaurant, I wouldn't change it at all. It was a great restaurant in a lot of ways. And some of the, the team that we had there are now still, some of our team members have been with us for 9-10 years. And like Lorna, who's our head of people, she's been with us for 8 years, and she ran that site. So that site afforded us heaps of lessons. And one of those things, and what we've realized now is that as we're growing, we've now learned that actually opening a kind of a more of a lifestyle restaurant in the suburbs doesn't really work for us in our strategy. What we need is high footfall areas, because that's what works for us in terms of our growth strategy. And so the only way of learning that is by doing it and then learning from it. But no one teaches you how to close a restaurant. So when we made it, you're familiar with like comms and PR and stuff, and figuring that one out. I'll tell you what, that was a head.
Because people don't they instantly see the negative. That's why I'm glad you're telling this story, because it's not actually a negative, it's actually a massive positive. Isn't it? When you look back on it. And
to be complete, honestly, we kept all the stuff on. Anyone that wanted to stay on stayed on, and we did our best. We moved all the bookings. There were a few people that there were a few guests that were a bit disgruntled, but actually on the whole, all of the conversation was really supportive, and everyone was just like, yeah, we get it, and we'll come see you at Docks, we'll come see you at Bold Street. And I was really touched. And we had, you know what made the whole thing a very stressful week or 3 was when I sent, because I like personally like emails all the guests that were booked in, sent a newsletter out, and well, actually it wasn't a newsletter, it was directly from myself, and the amount of emails back, people took their time to reply to me. They're like, just sending regards, and made the whole thing way better.
Yeah. It's funny what you say there, though, isn't it, about making those mistakes to actually learn and to move on and to grow. It's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point, and it's so important. It does as well. Yeah. And we've probably got many more mistakes to make. I know I certainly have, and I do them every day. But that's what makes you learn and makes your business more successful in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, we're still figuring stuff out all the time, and we're constantly reflecting and looking and like, okay, what can we, how can we do better? Because a business, we've got nearly 100 employees now. Like a business is it's like a living organism, and you're constantly having to keep yourself in check. So
we got to talk about the Albert Dock, because that is obviously the Royal Albert Dock. It's one of the busiest tourist attractions in the UK. Marais is always busy dockside. I love the little outside area. There's a great feel to that place. It's kind of a little bit different to Bold Street. It feels like the Albert Dock, but it still feels like Marais as well. You're doing well over there, aren't you?
It's cool. It's beautiful. We've got an office there as well. And it's such a beautiful location. And I'll be honest, I was slightly nervous about opening there. I was but it's changed a lot over the last few years, I think. And because I think there was a period where it wasn't a huge destination or it was for a bit, and then I think it kind of dipped in terms of like the amount of people that were actually going there to eat and drink. But it's awesome now, and we're down there. We've got obviously Marais, Burnt Milk, Rudy's is open. Like, it's such a great location. It's different. Like, our clientele is a bit different there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of obviously it's very popular with tourists, so we have a lot of people that are visiting for the day, which is awesome. So we get our brand is exposed to people that may not have heard of it. And you're right, the venue feels different. It's like Bold. You can't replicate Bold Street. It's cozy. It's kind of like, it's very got the low ceiling. It's very vibey, like Docks, as you say. And it's interesting. Sometimes I was like, ask people like which one do they prefer, and people prefer different ones for different reasons. Like, and we do find that the clientele is slightly different because it's just got a slightly different feel. But I'm glad you said that it still feels like Marais. So
I love Dockside. The move to Manchester, Tom, tell us about this, because this is something that many, Liverpool and Manchester, kind of more so than most people, because businesses try and make that expansion to Manchester, vice versa. How do you do it? Is it daunting? What are the challenges? What are the differences between both cities?
Yeah, definitely. The move to Manchester had been on the cards for like years, to be honest. Like, we knew that we wanted to do it. It's a kind of a no-brainer if you're either in a Manchester business and you're looking to grow in the northwest. The next site for you is Liverpool, and vice versa. And I mean, in terms of how we did it, a big thing for us, right, was if we don't want to just like bounce over there and like open our doors and be like, right, yeah, we're a Liverpool restaurant. Like, so we put a lot of work in terms of engaging with local businesses in Manchester. So we've got our chair, who sits on a board. It's called Lucy Noon. She's Manchester based. She's also an advisor for me in terms of comms, and she's very well connected. So she plugged us in with lots of local businesses. So we went over there and we spent like a good 6 months sort of ingratiating ourselves into the community there, so that when we did open, it wasn't just like, we're just here, like, open our doors, come in. And operationally, actually, it's not that difficult because it's actually really close, and you can drive there in 45 minutes on a good day, and so operationally it's quite straightforward. I think the next move will be different because it might be a site further afield. Differences, again, like Bold Street is a certain kind of a slightly different clientele to Docks. Manchester, where we are, Manchester's a big city, right? And there's different. This is one of the things that we have to figure out. It's like 5 different neighbourhoods within Manchester, right? It's not like Liverpool where you've got a few spots to open a site in Manchester, and that was one of the biggest things we had to figure out. It's like, do we open in Ancoats? Do we open in Northern Quarter? Do we open on Deansgate? And the site that we've ended up in is great, and it's just between Deansgate and the Town Hall. So what we're getting a real mixed clientele. There's a lot of corporate guests there because of so many offices. So that's something that we've adjusted to. We've got got someone there in a kind of like a BDM position that's really like building the relationship with those corporate guests. Standards are high in Manchester for sure. Like, and we're next to a few. We're just off Deansgate, so you've got Hawksmoor, you've got Dishoom around the corner as well, and the food and drink scene in Manchester, like Liverpool, has been growing as well over the last 5 years. So, you've really got to deliver there.
You can answer this, Tom. Which city is nailing it in terms of hospitality most? Because we hear 2 stories, both very different cities, but Manchester, Liverpool. Which would you choose?
Which one's nailing it?
Yes. He's looking at me.
Well, obviously, I'm choosing Liverpool. Yeah. And that's I think I can never be truly objective because I'm from it, and like because I've got like friends in the industry. Like, there's so much homegrown talent here that are doing like awesome things, and it's so rad. Like, the people, some of the chefs and people who, like front of house stars that have come through our doors and then gone on like that are doing awesome things. Got the likes of obviously like Sam Granger used to work for us. He's now doing awesome things with Marais and Belzan. Liv Alarcon, who's a super talented chef, who's doing awesome stuff. Like, and that is like, I love seeing that, and so Liverpool will always like win it for me. But also Liverpool is I feel Liverpool's such an independently spirited city, and so the vibe here is different. And I think when the Liverpool community get behind a local restaurant, or at least a restaurant that was started local, like they really get behind it, and so that is what sets the hospitality scene here apart.
It's true though, isn't it? Because we feel like we own you. We feel like
sure.
We do, you know what I mean? It's that's ours.
Yeah.
We want to protect it. We want to go in as much as we want to tell everyone about it.
Yeah,
we feel proud. In Liverpool, don't we?
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely a unique feature of this city.
Yeah,
for sure.
Tell me what would be next then, because you mentioned there about another city potentially. Is it just now is it the growth plan is that just going to continue?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're a dynamic company, and we're always open to opportunities. Just at the end of last year, we went into partnership with the team at Buyers Club. So now we're operating Buyers Club. We've obviously got the 1 o'clock gun, which is a bar down the docks. So we're looking to sort of diversify what we do. Marais is that's our main that's our baby. That's the brand that we're growing. So we're growing. We're looking to grow across the northwest. So we're always looking at multiple cities. So it's just about when the right site, the right size site in the right location comes up. But
Is that kind of key for that perfect opening, the site? And
100%. Yeah, location. I mean, we looked at so many sites in Manchester before finding that one. But I mean, look at Bold Street. Like, we looked at a site on Renshaw Street, like around the corner, and no diss on Renshaw. Like, I love Renshaw. There's great stuff on Renshaw Street, but like if we'd opened on Renshaw Street, it just wouldn't have been the same. Do you know what I mean? So that location piece is so important, and also the size. There's a few different factors, but location is key.
Yeah, I think as well though, when you opened, and I agree, location is absolutely key, isn't it? But when you opened, Bold Street wasn't Bold Street, the Bold Street that we know now, in terms of there being restaurants. No. It was such a different place, wasn't it? And I think Marais, and I'm not just saying this because you sat in front of me, was part of that kind of renaissance of Bold Street. Do you agree with that?
That's cool. I mean, you can probably speak to that more than me, because I like I said, I was back and I grew up, although I was born here, I grew up down south, and I only settled permanently in Bold Street, back in Liverpool in 2013. So I didn't really have a good read on like what Bold Street had been like for the years prior to that. But yeah, I mean, now you say it, I mean, but Mowgli opened like just shortly after us. And you're right, yeah, there wasn't heaps there, and now you walk down the street and it's just like, it's lined, isn't it? And it's reflected in the rent prices, I'll tell you that. But yeah.
What are the biggest, talking rent and stuff, obviously there's a lot of news about hospitality, about the industry kind of trying to stay afloat at the moment. A lot of businesses are struggling, many are closing, many big brands that we know and love. What are the biggest challenges hospitality is facing right now, and what advice would you give to anyone who is struggling?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very difficult. I think that obviously with the biggest thing at the moment is that with the cost of living, people are now choosing where they're going to go out and eat and drink even more carefully, right?
Yeah.
So a big thing for us is like, consistency as a hospitality business is not just in terms of the food and the products, like that's a given, but ensuring that you're delivering like a consistent experience, because so that if someone is going to choose where they're going to spend the money, it's with you, and really like ensuring that you're looking after the people that are already dining with you, as well as like trying to reach like market to new guests. Like something that we really try and do is look after the people that are coming in already, but it's really hard, and it's and you know, with everything's rising, and so we have to be really, really nimble, and adapt at all times, but focusing on experience has just been the key for us.
Yeah, I think that's right though as well, isn't it? It's focusing on your customer base that you've got and keeping them as happy as possible, so they do return rather than choosing somewhere else, which is what we're seeing now, isn't it, essentially?
Yeah.
What is Marais' key to success then? What would you say has got you to the 10-year point?
I think there's a lot of things that have gone into the fact that we've been around for 10 years. And like, listen, Jay, like if you'd asked me 10 years, I wouldn't have thought that we'd, you know, that would be sat here. So I think that, I think there's a saying that like what got you here won't get you there, which I like, and something that, you know, there's key things that you need to be doing as a hospitality business, which is, like I said, you know, obviously things like products and ensuring that your offering is, you know, unique, or at least fulfilling a need that is not being fulfilled, or you're presenting something in a different way, the basics. But there's a point where I think it's important to slow down and look at like what's the purpose behind what you're doing, and like why is it that your business exists? Like what is it that what's your purpose? And we did that a while back, and it was a really powerful thing. And we sat down with the team and we sort of really tried to pick apart like what is it about Marais that is special? Like why do we actually exist? Like what's the point of this? Because you can't, you know, it's not making money. Like making like profit and stuff like that is a side product. Really, your purpose is like what makes you get out of bed in the morning, and it's and you need to, and focusing in on that really kind of paves the way for everything else. So we realized that the reason that we exist is to deliver like unforgettable experiences. And we actually got a bunch of our I went into the booking system and pulled a report like who are like the people that have eaten with us the most, and like sat them down like, why do you keep coming here? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And you know, and once you get past the like qualifying, they're like, well, it's because you care, and where care kept coming up, like, yeah. You know, you care about what you do, and so that then forms like our sort of our central like that's like our core value, alongside passion and honesty and integrity. Like, so care, and putting care into everything that we do. But then there's power in articulating that, and it kind of gives you, that then drives your decision making. And it helps you make those big decisions on, like, okay, are we making these decisions for the right reasons? And actually getting everybody aligned with that purpose. Like, we exist to deliver unforgettable experiences. That's why we're here. That feeds into, like, all of the interactions that we have with like everybody, whether it's a guest or whether it's, suppliers, whether it's in the comms that we're putting out, it feeds into every touch point. So that was a big point for us. And I think, I hope that having that focus will enable us to kind of grow, over the next however long.
For many years. And I can say, I'm not just saying this, Tom, every time I've dined at Marais or gone for a drink, whatever it might be, whatever the occasion, whatever site, that care is there. You do feel like it's such a warm welcome. Exceptional food. And again, and I've got to talk about it, the disco cauliflower. As soon as that comes out, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Let's finish it. Disco cauliflower.
Yeah.
It must be one of them where, when you're like an artist that's got a big famous number one and it's all people remember you for. And some artists must be like, oh, not this again.
Yeah.
Do you get like that with the disco cauliflower?
You know what? I still eat it like every week. So it's, not at all. I think, and the reason why I think I'm okay with I don't hate it, is because that term, like, we didn't create that. Obviously we created the dish. It was put on as a special by one of our, an ex-head chef of ours, Chris Haggerty, who then went on to do Octopus, Buyers Club, really talented chef. And we put it on as a special on a Sunday. And I remember he cooked it, and I put a knife in it, and I was like, "This looks mad," and took a photo of it, put it on Instagram. Everyone went nuts. So we kept it on for a bit, and then it just obviously stayed on the menu. And then a regular, referred to it as a disco cauliflower, and then it just was one of those weird sort of viral thing. I don't know. It just caught on. Yeah. And it somehow just embedded itself into the language. And it's only recently, a couple of years ago, that we actually called it that on the menu. We changed it because there was actually a restaurant in Manchester, of all places, that had put on a disco cauliflower on their menu. And I think they did acknowledge us, but I was like, okay, I should probably trademark that now, because it's like this organic kind of one of those cool brand things that's just sort of happened. So because it was a guest that came up with it, I'm kind of cool with it, and it's a really nice hero dish. I mean, look, it's amazing. It's utterly delicious. It looks rad, and it's just got it's developed this kind of like wild cult status that. Yeah,
but it's good though. That's the thing. It's not just like a fad, or it's actually really good. Everyone I've eaten, which there are many, have been delicious and served really well.
Yeah, it's mint.
So home of the disco cauliflower, Marais. You've just opened it in Box Park as well. We got to touch on that. It's something we haven't mentioned. Something a little bit different, because it's kind of more your street food, your kind of market style food, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that was a really nice opportunity. It was a way for us to again kind of go back to the roots a bit and focus on, as you say, that kind of more casual street food style offering. So we're doing falafel and shawarma. It's super tasty, really fun. And it's nice. That, to be honest, that kind of concept, that kind of casual concept, is something that's been the kernel of that idea has been around for ages. And Box Park was it's a cool place to incubate it. So I think you'll see. I think that brand and that offering has got legs. Yeah,
I think so too. Takes you back to those falafel roots as well, doesn't it?
That's it.
Which must be cool. What would you like to say to anyone, Tom, listening, who've enjoyed Marais over the 10 years? Any staff, former employees, anyone who's never been to Marais? What is your message to people? 10 years in, there's a lot of people there to give a message to. But anyone who supported Marais,
just thank you, because it's really, like I said, I do get mad imposter syndrome. it's very, when you're running a business, it's easy to like navel gaze and get quite, so when people, every time I get a feedback email from a guest, because so when people make a booking, they we send out like an email saying like, let us know how it was. And every time people write back and tell us like how amazing their experience was, like even 10 years in, it's still like, it still hits me. And it's like, that's like why we're doing it. That's why. And it's like, we've literally like made someone's day. We've improved someone's day. So like so to everyone that's been in over the last 10 years and supported us through, for a decade. Sincerely, thank you. Cause it's awesome. And if you've not been yet, what are you playing at?
Get involved. Tom White, thank you so much. QVO Hospitality, of course, Marais, Rose Street Falafel in Box Park.
Yep.
Check that out. Manchester, Albert Dock, and of course on Bow Street where it all began. Tom, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.